Is this going to be a shared meeting with Leah, or is that maybe I misunderstood at the beginning?
No, because you never replied. So we do have something planned for Thursday
Okay.
with Ellie Schwagenheim. It's probably
Yeah.
best that that meeting stays with just him.
No, it
We should
doesn't
do
work.
a we
Yeah.
should do another meeting, me, you, and Leia. I think.
Yeah. Okay. No, that actually Thursday doesn't work anyway.
Yeah. Um. So, uh, do you want to talk about anything before I start going into stuff?
Uh, well, regarding the video that you sent about your conversation with Ellie, there's definitely a few things that that's possible to comment on. Probably this is not the time to go into that in detail, but at some
What
point,
video with Ellie? You
you
mean the?
you shared with me a conversation about Judaism and the
Oh,
implications of the scientific method.
right. I remember that now. Yes, that feels like 1,000 years ago. By the way, I've
Yeah,
heard so
yeah,
much since then.
yeah. We didn't talk last week, so
No, that's fine. I'm not. I wasn't complaining. I'm just saying. I was giving a defense of me not remembering.
no. And honestly, I don't fully remember everything I watched then, so I wouldn't probably I would need a refresher to see what.
Sure. I'm even trying to remember why I emailed you. Yeah, I don't remember like what it was. Why I emailed it to you.
Well,
I'm guessing it was to try to get you to say, "Yeah, I want to do a podcast about that topic," but I don't remember what the topic was.
yeah. Well, anyway, it's something that we could talk about at some point once again.
Yeah, okay. I guess. And here's the thing: all that stuff that I send you, I don't leave it in email. I put it in like notes in our notes, so we will cross over it again. You know.
Right, but it's also a good idea to have it in email, especially with a timestamp that would be easier to come back to and then revise it. On my end, it's always a good idea to have
Well, I
something.
like sending the emails to you for one thing, just to get the idea in your head right now, so it can start mulling.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And yeah, so there's a record of it, and we could exchange over there. Yeah.
yeah,
So
and did I did watch not the entire thing. I maybe watched the first 30 or 45 minutes or so. I like the conversation. I do have some comments which I don't remember
oh,
right
I
now.
remember now why I emailed you.
Okay.
He made some comments about which I didn't have enough information to try to contradict him about it. And it was related to the treatment of Jews in the Islamic Empire. So yeah, that's why I sent it to you.
Oh, okay. I mean,
It was later in the podcast.
yeah. So I don't know if you want to make some comment about that right now or
No. That's not what these meetings are for. Here
yeah.
we're trying to, the highest level stuff. We're trying to run the organization. Do you have anything else before I go into stuff?
No, I don't think so. I mean, apart from what I mentioned before, that December is going to be ex-Muslim Awareness
Yeah,
Month.
and I didn't know that, by the way. I didn't know that month existed. Not December, but the American.
Well, yeah, it existed for a while. If you look, there's a Reddit thread maybe from last year or the year before. I'm not sure. Where
I
this,
saw it. I searched
yeah,
and I saw it.
yeah, this was initiated then, and so
So it's
that's
only like a year old.
a year or two, I think. But
Wow.
but but but
This is also new.
but yeah, so this whole idea is still being formulated, and it's still trying to find a direction because if November is Islamophobia month, a good contrast for it would be ex-Muslim Awareness Month that would come right after it, and that's
But they put it on the same month.
it wasn't chosen on the same month for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. What I'm saying is that in December, you should expect that people are going to make things, events, activities, things of that
Sure.
sort, and it's a good idea to.
So ours is scheduled for the 2nd.
Yeah, that's
We don't have to start on the 2nd. We could start at the end of the month. I think the beginning of the month is better.
Yeah, the beginning of the month probably is better, because if there's going to be some campaigns, some hashtags that eventually develop on Twitter and things of that sort, it's a good idea to join that, and just to make to give the whole thing more momentum, instead of just joining in towards the end.
So I've already I've already announced that we're starting on the 12/2, by the way.
Mhm.
I put it in like Reddit a few places, and I updated the members on our website. So really, what's left is for us to hash out what we're going to discuss in the first episode, and we already discussed the general topic, but we maybe should make an outline.
Did you get any feedback about that when you made the announcement? Do you have some, maybe some people making suggestions about what?
I tried to get people to do that, but nobody did. Maybe the reason nobody did was I gave them the list of what we're already talking about, and that was so ginormous. They probably didn't even, like, if somebody was to skim it, you wouldn't finish, and you'd never get around to telling me anything.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not doing the marketing great here. I don't know.
Yeah, the marketing is definitely. I mean, I wouldn't say you're not doing it greatly. What I'm saying is that probably um, a specific direction of what's being marketed and where it's headed is still something that needs to be established well.
Yeah, well, fortunately for us, we're getting a lot of bleed over of marketing ideas from Leia, because we're working on another project like ours. It's pretty different. Agents of Change. We're helping people. I'm going to butcher it here. And this is my understanding. We're helping them improve themselves, and then so they can then go improve the communities that they're in now and the former ones they were in. So that applies to ex-Muslims. So what I'm envisioning is people go through and learn Deconstructing Islam. What I mean is learn from us in that venue, and we're then giving them a place to jump to go to like another level. That's Agents of Change. And it's not just ex-Muslims there. It's anyone coming out of any religion, cult, new age, whatever movement, conspiracy theory stuff. It's a lot of things. And Leia has been, for the past 20 some years, connecting with these groups. 20 groups of the kinds that I've been describing have been coming to her for so many years.
I would say ex-Muslims already have this type of MO whenever they are engaging people. So it's I don't like this kind of cliche. It's a little bit overused, but it's like when people in the Matrix movie, they start waking up, and all of a sudden they're not just waking up and walking away. No, they're waking up and coming back to basically. I wouldn't say preach, but maybe to, like you said, be agents of change in a place where this other
but we're really helping them do it. We're we're providing them the tools that they need to learn to do this stuff really well. And it's not just abstract stuff that I teach, and a lot of my stuff is practical. Some of it's very abstract, but all of Leia's stuff is extremely practical. And it's not just her stuff. She's bringing stuff from other people. As an example, let me remember his name. Saul Alinsky.
Okay.
Do you know the name?
No, I'm
You
not.
haven't heard of it. Okay. Well, anyway, it's a rule book, handbook for how to make change in your community, and it's for the poor people in a scenario where, and it developed in the 70s in Chicago. I think the 70s, maybe earlier. And the concept is you're in a scenario where everything's kind of stacked against you. Where, let's say, slum landlords, when you try to defend yourself against the landlords, let's say judges are against us and the city is against you, the politicians are against all that, and this is a handbook for how to make change despite that environment.
And was that something that so there is a book, and I'm assuming that this came within an environment where some kind of a feedback about how it gets implemented, what sort of things from it worked, what didn't work. And given that it was in the 70s, there's probably a lot of time that has elapsed since then to have a good retrospect on what this actually means from a
I don't know
practical
how
view.
much work has been done since then, and a community developing it and improving it the whole time. I'm going to find out that kind of stuff soon. But when I read the rule book, I was very happy with it. And I noticed, I already do all those things.
Okay, that's
Now, here's the thing. I'm
Mhm.
sure he has methods that I'm not aware of, but they're within the same category. Like he has 12 rules, and I know those rules in the sense that I do them. I'm sure he has nuances that I don't know about. So in that sense, it's worth it for somebody like me to go learn that stuff. But I already do those things. But I'm not like a normal person. Somebody who's gonna go read that, they're gonna learn shit.
Okay.
I don't know how well it does at explaining itself. Like, I read one of the rules, I couldn't make heads or tails of it, and then I Googled about it, and I understood that explanation that I Googled. But then when I tried to connect that explanation to the original thing I read, I couldn't make heads. I couldn't connect them.
Okay.
But the other ones, I understood everything. It's like, as an example, there's a thing. One of his rules is to I'm not even going to describe it the way he described it. I'm going to describe it the way I do in chess. Okay, do you play chess?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, tell me if you know this. I don't even know how I learned this. I don't know if I learned it from my uncle, who's a really good chess player. Like, he used to play whole games with friends without a board. He would talk it.
Wow.
Him and his friend. I've never been able to do that. Anyway, so I played with him, so I got good from playing with him, and I always try to learn what he's doing, And I think I discovered this from him. He wasn't trying to tell me the general idea, but I figured it out from what he was telling me. Each move you play, you need to be putting pressure on your opponent. And the reason is, if you don't, you just do a move that doesn't put pressure on him, you're giving him a wider range of ways he can reply. You want to narrow down his fucking range of things he can do.
Okay.
So every move, you have to put pressure. You have to be attacking something, doing something. And I'm sure you can imagine right now a move you can make that doesn't do anything to him.
Yes.
Yeah. Most moves maybe are like that. Most, like, if you imagine every possible move, most moves are of that form. It doesn't put any pressure on your opponent.
Right.
This is what Saul Alinsky teaches when you're dealing with an opponent, let's say a political opponent, and you're the weak guy or whatever. This is the scenario. The context is it's a weak opponent against a stronger one. Although in chess it's the same.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, eventually you are playing against a human. The chessboard itself is just a way to set the rules of what you're actually doing, and the rules of engagement in politics would be different, but the idea is still essentially the same.
The form of stuff would be the same. Where it would be different is things like, you got to be careful. Whatever methods you're using on your enemy, you got to make sure that doesn't cross over to things you do to your loved ones.
Right.
So, and that's not very easy, by the way. I want to, switching back to the original topic about, let's start making a plan for what we're going to talk about on our first episode.
Yes.
So I have 2 Reddit posts I would like you to review with me. And I think this is going to give us a pretty good idea of what people are wanting.
Okay, okay, that's a good starting.
Let me put that on the screen. Okay. What must happen for our world to not be... Okay, this was me talking. Let me actually go to the first one. Somebody said, I need a white pill. Is there any good news? Do you think Islam will die out eventually, and how exactly? Or are we stuck with suffering with Muslims forever? Ex-Muslims and their channels claim Islam is dying and more people are leaving, but at the same time, birth rates for Muslims are still way above replacement level in many areas around the world. A lot of them will leave Islam, but what is the future? They need a white pill. Or just tell me we're fucked.
Okay, let me say something first about...
Well, why don't you read my reply first?
Okay.
None of us know what the future will be, not about Islam, not about whether we kill ourselves by war or by killing our planet. But what we do know is that the outcome depends on what we do about it. So the question is, what are you doing about it? If you're not sure, then what you should be doing is working toward getting sure. This is kind of harsh. This is kind of like speaking to somebody that would become a leader of a project. But it's making a point here, which is the outcome isn't destined already. It depends on what we do, and you're one of the we.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I was going to say something about the way that this gets phrased in talking about Muslims themselves versus Islam. So I would prefer to treat something like Islam as a kind of an affliction, to avoid actually focusing on the people themselves who are afflicted. You're not going to be fighting the cancer patient. You're going to be fighting the cancer in the patient. So I felt that the phrasing was a little bit problematic.
Yeah. But here's another way to see it too, which resolves the issue and doesn't need the thing you're saying. And you and I have talked about this before. This question makes it out to be that ex-Muslims are like atoms in the sense that we're all the same, or Muslims are like atoms in the sense that they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
As if Muslims all today are the exact same and the same as all the Muslims that have ever lived. It doesn't factor in a basic point that, yeah, there's a possible future where all Muslims are peaceful. Why couldn't that exist? I mean, you can imagine it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A different kind of Muslim, just like there's different kinds of Muslims today. And there's different kinds of, there were more, from what I understand, people tell me, there were more peaceful Muslims in the past.
I mean, the thing about the peacefulness of Islam or lack of it has to do with what the Muslims themselves are doing in the sense of expansion or not. So the aggression of the religion came in periods of expansion. Once you have that big state that is stable, you will have oppressed groups within the state, but the aggression only happens when there is some issue that has to do either with an external threat, which could be genuine, or the perceived one. But you have to remember that when looking at the classification of jihad in Islam, there are two different types of jihad. One of them is actually called, I'm not sure how to translate it. It's called jihad al-talab, which is basically you don't wait for a threat to come to you. You actually go, and this is not a preemptive thing. It's just that since you have infidels, it's your duty to go and fight them. So in that sense, that type of Islam, which is not every type of Islam, this type of Islam is very definitely very threatening, and it's as long as it exists in that form, it's always threatening because that's its nature.
So I'm trying to write an outline, and it seems like we're getting in a ton of detail. Let me put this on the screen now. I'm just summarizing what the dude said. Kind of like what he said, right? Are we gonna have to live with Muslims forever? And you said fight the cancer, not the cancer patient.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with Islam, not Muslim, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying what this question treats Muslims as all the same, like atoms. And I think you're making a third point now. Can you summarize it for me so I can write it?
So whenever you are looking at, let me see, how do we summarize?
Also, if you want, you could write it if it's easier instead of trying to get me to write it.
Well, I'm trying. It's not a single idea. It's several things that. Okay, just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Actually, there. Right. So there is the legitimate type of jihad, which is the defensive war, and there is the more aggressive one, which is driven by an imperative to spread the religion. That's basically a generalization of what happened at the beginning of Islam, where the early conquests were actually driven. Let's disregard what was actually driving them, but on the face of it, it was driven to spread the religion. So what's happening right now that's actually showing the aggression, the violence that's taking place, has been perceived by some Muslims, or has been motivated by some Muslims who are committing these issues as that type of war. Either it's a mixture of war where people are trying to defend themselves against the perceived threat of the West, or they're saying an opportunity to spread Islam in the West, to include the West in the Islamic dominion through that jihad. So both of them now are being activated in that sense, but it is really hard to make the generalization that suffering through Muslims, or having to stand them as a generalization that includes everybody in that kind of category. Though I have to say, it is not a trivial minority, as some people try to put it. It is a significant.
From the way the question was asked, it seems like somebody who's not in the Islamic world, who's worried about the Islamic world encroaching in his life. And it doesn't seem like somebody who lives in the Islamic world and is inside of one of those families and all they see is Islam, and asking the same question, what's going to happen to Islam, So I think it makes sense to try to address both sets of concerns.
Right. So in many Western countries, especially if I want to think about this in Europe more than the US, the cultural invasion of the normal European space by Muslims in all sorts of areas, whether it's in the public sphere, in education. There are certain places in Europe where you have whole communities, whole neighborhoods of full cities that are basically being run by local Muslims. So there is a very big Muslim presence that appears to be encroaching on the lives of people. And so I can understand that as another form of that invasion that people find intrusive and feel unwelcome.
I had a thought and now it's gone because I was writing. So this is addressing, their concern. So what we got to talk about is what's causing this to happen. Part of it is the response by Westerners, not just what Muslims are doing.
I mean, you have an inevitable clash in the sense of Huntington, um, the clash of civilization as a way to characterize what's actually happening uh, on that interface between Islam and the West.
By the way, I don't know Huntington, but I'm writing it down.
Right. So he characterized what's actually happening as a clash of civilizations, and when you do it that way, it's inevitably going to be involving antagonism. There is the antagonism that came from the West in the form of colonialism and all these things that were trying to get dominion over the Muslim world. And then you have this cultural and ideological invasion of Islam into the West that's happening because of that interface. And so it's a kind of a push and pull from both directions. Um, so I wouldn't say one part is causing it rather than the other. It's basically the presence of two different cultures at the same location with conflicting interests that's going to
Yeah,
inevitably.
but what I meant was,
Mhm.
like, suppose there's a place that is having some Islam encroachment, but that place, those people, they're doing everything right about how to deal with it. We don't have that in the UK. That's what I meant. They're doing shit that's partly causing and allowing it to happen.
Well, it's a little bit hard to say what is the right way to handle this.
Absolutely. It's very hard to figure out.
I think, is it the Czech Republic or Poland? I think there when there was an influx of refugees at some point, one country refused to have any of these refugees coming from the Middle East, seeing what's happening in Germany and Scandinavia and so on, making a decision that no, we're not going to be part of this. Is this a right way of doing it? Probably not. I mean, if you're just completely blocking this, eventually you're not going to have Muslims in your country. But at the
But
same,
I want to be clear. The right way doesn't mean you have absolutely zero encroachment or problems. That's not what I mean. But the right way is doing a really good job of stopping it. And the UK is not doing that at all. I keep picking on the UK because of the recent stuff I've been learning about them. And the last few decades, in a lot of towns in the UK, they're just not holding Muslims accountable the same way they hold all the other people in the same country accountable.
it's not just the UK. It's not just the UK.
No, I get that. I only know about the UK is my point. I don't know about the other places, so I can't speak about them. And you know, a lot of times I just want to give an example of a place. I don't think America is acting that way,
No.
and I think we don't have those problems.
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, America's problems are completely different. Had America been very close to the Middle East and there were people crossing over because of the issues, yeah, definitely. But
Well, I want to tell you what Ian Hersey said about this. I saw this. I learned this like 10 years ago, maybe longer, where she was explaining that the difference between UK and America is that in the US, it does really well of integrating people. And in the UK, they do very poorly. And she gave reasons of why she thinks it's happening. So in the UK, you end up with all these ghettos meaning a pocket of people of one ethnicity, and they don't talk to anyone else. And she's saying that doesn't happen in the US, or if it does happen, it's not much. US does a lot better job of getting people to integrate.
I tend to disagree. I don't think that's the main reason. probably what I would say is that this is an implication of the difference between the two places, but it's not the reason. Um, so, in order for a Muslim to come to the US, they have to cross an ocean. This means this means that they have to go through the procedure just like any other one who wants to justify their presence in the US, compared to, for example, all the people who might be coming from Latin and South America, who might be presenting the same problem that you're talking about in the UK, not because of something about the population itself, but because it's highly unregulated. And so it's the lack of regulation in those places in Europe that's causing the system to be basically overwhelmed. There is no set of checks about what's actually happening, and so you end up with these big ghettos that have all this issue. So,
Lack of what again? Say it again.
lack of regulations.
Regulations in those ghettos.
Lack of regulations of basically screening, making sure that you're actually able to know that you're going to be handling whatever population that you're putting in. Because if you're looking at,
you mean vetting people before they come in?
yeah,
Vetting,
which is something that, as far as I understand, is not something that happens in the UK.
So you're saying US does really well vetting people and UK doesn't?
UK and probably Europe. So the European countries that are a little bit closer to the Middle East in general, places where you can essentially take a boat and take that boat directly to that country. If you enter illegally in that way, it's very obvious that there is no filter. And if the country is welcoming people in general for whatever reason, there are valid humanitarian reasons that you would say, okay, these people are fleeing from a war, we have to address their issues. That's a valid reason, but still it's something that is going to have the whole thing unchecked.
Okay, so these are all good things to talk about. They're in the outline now. There's this other post where I tried to get more things out of people. What must happen for our world to not be overwhelmed by Islam? And the kind of question I'm asking is, what are the obstacles to making huge progress? And then how do we overcome those obstacles? What must happen? And I made it very generic. I didn't answer it myself. I only let people answer. And I think we should consider all these. We might think of some of these might be good. Here's one about translating the Quran in tons of languages. That makes sense. It worked previously, he's saying. Ataturk did it.
I mean, the Quran is available in many languages. So let's take a place like Pakistan, for example. The Pakistanis don't speak Arabic, and they are very much ignorant about the content of the Quran, unless you are a scholar who might want to look into the language. They are willing to recite the words, but if you want, the Quran is available to them in translation. In the case of Turkey, I think what happened is something a little bit more comprehensive than just translating the Quran or making it available in the Turkish language. Turkey was in the midst of the whole thing. It was,
of course, they had a huge zeitgeist happening.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the elements, and it could have been so small it had no effect and didn't matter, was the translating.
Yeah, but don't forget that in Turkey, they were writing in Arabic script, and this was completely banned, and they changed this into Latin script. The whole country was thoroughly secularized, so translating the Quran itself was just one step in within a whole slew of things that the country as a whole did, and Ataturk definitely was spearheading this. If it weren't for that particular person running this whole show, probably things would have been completely different. I mean, towards the end of the Ottoman Empire, there was I forgot its name. Um, Something about Young Turkey, that was essentially the transition. So there was already something happening within the Ottoman Empire from the inside that caused it to break apart from within, not just because there was World War I and all these mess. So it was two different things happening concurrently.
The point is, like, there's things already happening, but what we can do is try to push some things to happen more and try to push down some other things. Okay. And it might have a big enough effect to reverse shit, So, like, at one point there was, we had a closed society. Let's talk about, let's say, the Middle Ages in Europe. I mean, in particular, it's a closed society, and shit happened. People did certain things. It's hard to know what, because there's a lot of different factors. And then what happened was, now they have an open society, and it makes sense to go figure out what all that shit was that caused all that, and then go back to all the cases in history where that happened. So it makes sense to go back to, like, ancient Greece. And I think now it makes sense, because I think this is hidden a lot, to talk about what happened during the Islamic, what they call the Golden Age, if it's a Golden Age or whatever. And even if it makes sense to call it Islamic versus Arabic Golden Age,
I would even refrain from, well, it's probably neither Islamic nor Arabic, to be honest.
Okay, it makes sense, because there was, from what I understand, maybe most of the people inside of the empire were not Arabs.
Yeah.
And they didn't speak Arabic either. That make it clear like that. Not like me, where people consider me an Arab, and I did too, and I still do in a sense, but my ancestors weren't Arabs, and Arabs invaded them and erased our language, and then my ancestors now only speak Arabic. Whatever the language was before is gone. But the point is, these people in this maybe 1100 AD, 1200 AD, in what's called the Islamic Empire, the Arab Empire, a lot of them were Persians that spoke Persian, not Arabic, and a lot of them were tons of other ethnicities and from other empires, and they didn't speak Arabic. So it makes no sense to call them Arabic. And they might have been Muslims or not.
Not only that, not that many people realize that for so many centuries after the Islamic conquest, people actually did not convert. So on top of the fact that you had these people who are ethnically and culturally different, they did not really adopt the religion. So places like Egypt, for example, the Christian presence persisted for so many centuries. There were revolutions, revolts that were quelled, not just in Egypt, but that's just an example. And so the perception of a unified Muslim culture, where you have the perception that somehow this culture created that golden age, I think this is very a very shallow point of view that doesn't really look at what really happened. Yes, the fact that you had a full umbrella where there was one big country, one big empire, where people interacted with one another, that was definitely a factor. Had it not been for that, probably that wouldn't have happened at that particular time. But it wasn't Islam itself or the Arab culture that instigated that. Far from it. On the contrary, most of the people who are actually the pioneers who have started within that period of time have been considered as apostates by their contemporaries. And even today, when people say, well, look at whoever, they mention some name about their achievement in whatever field, that they were Muslims having done that. Well, these were mainly foreigners who are living under the Islamic Empire.
Yes, 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 exactly. Also, they were the version I said, which is people that were already living there, and then the Arabs came and became the new government, but they have nothing to do with us. And if we create shit, it shouldn't be attributed to them.
Yeah.
But you can say the same thing about all the other places, like ancient Greece and the Enlightenment era. You should ask, what were the other sources? You know, they didn't just start in a vacuum.
Yeah, but I think what I think the Islamic golden age, quote unquote, is actually more relevant in this conversation because of the fact that you're still talking about a situation that's governed by Islam, where Islam is a main factor that's present in the society. And so if you look at that age, you would see that it wasn't that Islam became had an influence. On the contrary, it was um,
Dampening effect.
exactly the dampening effect of the presence of religion in general. So whether it's in Spain or in Baghdad, where you can see that people had the some freedom to work, it was exactly because people were moving away from religion. So definitely moving away from religion is going to open the space for, or is going to create a kind of a vacuum that's naturally going to be filled up by some other cultural influences. And the biggest influence that we have right now is going to be the influence that's going to be coming from the West. And that influence is coming through various cultural, technological, yeah, and us. But it's mainly these products that reach the people directly without having people tell them something specific. So the very fact that you have access to technology, which by itself is now a product of some other place, but it's also a platform that's going to open up doors that you didn't have access to in the past. So I'm in if I want to say something about the claim that was mentioned before in one, I don't know who made it. I think it was one of the commenters about Islam subsiding in one way. Yes, most definitely that's happening. And we talked about this before, even in the West, where there is a perception, oh, look at Westerners, they're following Islam in droves. That's actually far from the truth. What's happening is that the Muslims themselves that are immigrating are just reproducing. That's just the natural reproduction of a population that's increasing, but the number of converts is so little. And in fact, the people who are deconverting from second generation people who came originally as Muslims, that's actually increasing significantly in the
Let's
West.
add something to that, which is, and let me write this down. Something about converts. The converts, again, Muslims are not atoms. So a convert Muslim is probably very different than a Muslim born to Muslim parents.
Yeah.
Especially when you factor in that the convert Muslim had Western parents and is living in the West, and the other type was their parents were born and raised overseas, and let's say this person is overseas or they're newly in the West. But the point is, convert Muslims are not dangerous. And maybe there are some, and I know some of them went to ISIS, but they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and they probably didn't do really harsh shit over there. If anything, they got scared shitless and ran away.
I don't know. I didn't
I don't
look
know either.
into that with enough detail to make that claim.
We need
But
the U.S. government to tell us. The
yeah,
FBI.
but I know for a fact that the people who convert, they might be enamored by some aspect of Islam, which is understandable. I mean, people who are seeking something and their journey leads them to a new religion, they're going to be embracing that. The problem here is that once they embrace a religion and get inside the community that practices the religion, many of them get surprised and shocked by what's expected of them, what other things that they were not aware of when the initial
It's
product
easy
was
to
bought.
get in. It's
Yeah.
very easy to get in. You
Yes.
want to know how Zorro said it? Oh, shit. He said it like this, and you could tell he said it many times because it came out so fast and nice. Yeah, hold on, and it's like it's poetic too. And I know what it ends with.
Is it about the bathroom thing?
No, it's about saying when you come, it's easy to come in, but when you're leaving, what is it? When you get in, we cut your willy. When you leave, what was it? We cut your neck. I don't remember anymore. Oh man, I gotta get it from him. I gotta call him.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
Well, no, I mean, obviously, it's obvious where this is leading, but
So you okay? I'm gonna get it and send it to you, and you're gonna laugh. It's not working now. Okay, so here's my main point. We want to get enough info here. It's organized enough, whatever, maybe. But what do you think of, like, if you want to do any more? What do you think of like skimming through these 2 Reddit posts and see if anything pops out at you? And
yeah.
and if you don't want to do that, you can just leave it up to me. I'm taking these comments and I'm putting them in this draft here. That's what all these are.
I think that's a good plan, but I would also probably try and see if there's more pertinent input that we could get that's more recent, that might be informed by what we have discussed, that there is some kind of a plan. Let's try to follow up with the people who made the proposition, see what sort of thing they have, because obviously if there's
I don't know what you're saying. What proposition?
Okay, so we clearly have a cluster of concerns that instigated these comments in the first place. If it's possible to follow up with these people with some of the propositions that we have right now, the list that we have right now, and try and see if they can add more, or if there are additional people who might make some more comments.
You mean try to talk to all those people who already commented and see if I can get more out of them?
Yeah, if that's something that's possible.
Like replying to the comments saying, "Hey, I gotta." That makes sense. Maybe I make a another Reddit post that tries to get info from people, but also go comment to all those people and say, "Hey, I made this new Reddit post. You got any more ideas?" Something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure how to actually implement it, but I think getting more feedback, especially more recent feedback, since we have now a plan that wasn't there to begin with to start.
Yeah, so this was 26 days ago, and I didn't say much, and nobody said anything. And then I did one a few days ago. Oh shit, I did 2. Look at this one. So I'm talking to never Muslims, asking them what they want to know about us and the Islamic world. And did anyone reply? Nope. That was Critique Islam subreddit. And then I did it in the ex-Muslim subreddit. In this one, what kinds of help would you want if it was available to you? And I give examples to get them started thinking. And check this out. I like this part. Oh shit, I didn't. Sorry. I didn't switch screens. This is the one directed at Muslims and ex-Muslims. And I put it in the ex-Muslim subreddit. What kinds of help would you want if it was available to you? And I gave examples of types. This pretty much covers everything. And then I said this. Read that. I like that.
Okay. To be clear, we will have read colors. Okay. Instead of trying to give everyone a little, helping a few people a lot means that those people can help others. Okay. That's the point that we started with. If we instead help everyone only a little, yeah, I like this.
And here's another point too. I know for a fact that there are people who they will, let's say, engage with you, and now once they've already engaged, now they feel like they've used up the credit or something, and now they feel bad for saying more, which is totally bad. There needs to be 1,000,000 times more engagement than that. So I'm saying here, do the opposite of it. Like you should, I don't know how to like, but what this means too is if you haven't already talked to me, now it's harder to talk to me.
Yeah.
So you better hurry the fuck up. And then I got some replies. He wants to get on the podcast or on the live stream. So we got somebody going to be calling in, and it was about how to decide to come out of the closet, something like that. Anyway, so I don't really know how to do more than what I've already done.
No, that's fine. I was thinking that this was relying on those posts, but I think
and I'll do even more. Like if I'm gonna try to come up with another type of question that would get people thinking. Because this is a different kind of question than the other one. Like instead of what topic should we talk about, it's what kinds of help would you want if it was available to you. I'm sure I can come up with other types of questions.
No, that's that one.
Get people coming.
Yeah.
So let's see. But this is not. I just confused myself. You were asking how do we get more information from people on the topic of the future of Islam. This is the whole damn channel.
Yeah, this is a little bit broader. I don't know if you want to reply back to the people who made the original comments to get them to speak some more.
I'll work on that. I never even thought of something like that. Yeah, I'll do that for sure.
Yeah,
and then whatever I get, I'll throw it at the bottom of this, and then maybe when I've done more of that, I'll send it to you in case you want to skim it.
Yeah,
and we still have another meeting before, or 2 meetings before we do this thing live.
Yeah. No, I think we already have at least a good idea about the start, and it's not only for one. It's the list that was accumulated today covers a lot of ground.
Well, here's the thing. When I picked this particular topic as the front of all of it, it wasn't something like, oh, this is the most central core. No, it was the thing that I think people care a lot about, and it touches everything else. So the things we're talking about in here get people interested in every other episode that's coming, because they're all connected to this.
Okay.
That's how I designed it. Yeah. So we're going to be saying a lot like, okay, this thing that we just talked about, it's important, but it's too much right now, and we're going to talk about it in another episode. So the whole time it's just getting people sticking ideas in their head. I have to come watch next time.
Yeah. And so many ideas can actually have several passes, because these are very much interconnected. It's not just one topic that is completely separate from the other. It's a whole worldview that is being deconstructed, and so it has so many different aspects that connect to so many different things.
Well, not only that, but like if you imagine we do this for a long time, okay, we're kind of young. Suppose this goes 15 years, and the 15th year in it, we might want to have another episode called What's the Future of Islam? Because a whole bunch of 15 years of past have happened. So anyway, so I guess that's it for Deconstructing Islam. Did you want to talk about anything else?
I think for now that's actually sufficient in order not to overload this. But for the future, it's a good idea to see if we want to talk a little bit about what Ellie mentioned before. If you have that proposal to meet with Leia and talk in general, or if you have something specific. Um, I mean, we also had some other plans about other topics, but
Well, I'm trying to fold all those other plans into Deconstructing Islam.
right, yeah. No, I think let's take this then in well-defined steps. We have now something. Let's not overload it, so that we're
What is
able.
the overloading? What is the thing you were trying to avoid? What's the example of the overloading?
Well, if we're going to be putting too many different topics right now, unless we're considering this as a kind of a roadmap of things that would come, ideas that would be touched on in at a later point.
Well, I mean, it's not like I did the work of going to every topic and tried to fold it in. What I'm saying is it's a general idea. I'm going to fold them all in. And I looked at some of them and it was very easy. The free will one was very easy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but the launch, the start is just going to be that kind of broad stroke approach to the topics that are there, what kind of landscape there is.
I can't get into details because it's only like an hour. By the way, we never talked about how long we're going. I think we should decide on like an hour, and if we go over, it's okay, but not too much over.
Right. So about the actual timing, obviously some topics require a lot of time to discuss and to give them enough time to actually go into details to have a coherent idea. But at the same time, you also want to attract enough people because the attention span of different people is not the same. So some people say that 25 minutes or the 15-minute mark hits exactly the kind of population that puts everything together, but obviously that's not where we're going. We're obviously doing a long format thing, but a 2-hour thing also is probably overdoing it.
Yeah, I mean, like, you've seen me. I get tired at an hour and a half. It starts going. So yeah. And when I talked to Leia about this, she said the same thing about our program, like max it at an hour, and it's really for other people's time. It's also for regularity. Like if a show was variable and it went an hour sometimes and 4 hours other times, that I don't think that would work well.
Yeah, you have to have a specific format. Otherwise, specific format, specific time, things that are.
Do you know what what's his name? Bill Maher does. I think his show is 50 minutes, and then it does go over, and you have to go to his paid site to get that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. If we wanted to, like, if we not now, but later when we get bigger and we have a lot of people, then we do it, and now there's money.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I see many people do that kind of plan. So, in fact, some of them would only put that kind of specific content as a standalone thing for people who are following them, who are maybe Patreon members or whatever it is that they have. Yeah, but that's a little bit too early to talk.
We have to be free to get everyone in, and then we have to have ways to convert some of that audience into a paid audience.
Right. The purpose of what we're doing right now is reaching people. So putting money walls is not the way to do it.
Yeah. So plus we wouldn't be able to sell shit. We wouldn't make $1. Okay. We wouldn't. Not at the current stage of we would not make $1.
Yeah, true.
Okay, anything else?
That's it for now, I think.
Did you want to ask anything about what's going on with Leia?
Well, I don't have anything specific. That the idea of is it active agents? You said.
Yeah, let me show you a quick post that she made. No. She made this, but I posted it. And she copied another one that I made. So, live stream series Agents of Change, co-hosted with Dr. Leia Zitter, starting an interactive live stream. Representatives from extremist religions, cults, conspiracy movements, new religious movements share how they deal with their traumas and affect change in their past and present communities. Topics include, and she surveyed people. All these topics came from people, not from us. Handle rejection, overcome religious trauma, create change movements through Alinsky's tested rules on how to change the world. That wasn't from the audience. That's Leia's idea. Mm-hmm. How to find meaning for your new life, how to maintain your psychological, emotional, spiritual health post-Xing, including when and if to come out to family and friends. That's a type of topic that's on our program too, you and me. How to avoid cult religion jumping. That's interesting. And then a link to her LinkedIn. And then she replied, this is her, with the link to the Rules for Radicals, a Pragmatic Primer. I think this is the book that he wrote in 1971 that describes his rules that I described earlier.
Okay.
99 members. We had 87 yesterday.
Wow.
And then she did something that brought these 12 or 11.
That's a significant jump.
She's a marketer, man. She's a marketer. And she's a freelance businesswoman for her entire career.
Oh,
that's a type of knowledge that I don't have. All of my business experience is like retail stores, manufacturing. I never had to sell me. I mean, I did really early on in my business where before I had employees, but once I had employees, I didn't do that shit. I hired really good salespeople.
Okay.
And they're better than me at selling. So I didn't develop my sales skills further much. But I did develop my people skills, but most of the people I deal with, you can imagine, you did what I did. We went through the physics department and you learn how to deal with people. That is true. But what kind of people? Physicists, professors. They're so different. Again, we're not atoms. They're so different than other people.
Yeah.
If you work well with physicists and you do, because you have to, the way Feynman said it was, when you get into physics, you're learning the culture of those people. Okay. Mm-hmm. And mine was already good a little bit, which is why they liked me and I enjoyed it and I liked them. But I also learned their methods, their culture, and I forgot my point. What the hell was my point?
Well, you were talking about So
I learned this culture and way of dealing with people, but it's those kind of people. And apparently you can't use that method with regulars. They get offended. They cry because you gave them a criticism. Their ego's shattered because, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't happen with us. And if it did, that they don't keep going. They're gone first year.
Yeah,
or they improve, I guess.
I also wouldn't idealize the community of all scientists. There are issues.
Well, I was saying physicists, by the way, and yes, I know there's the physicists that aren't so great, and that makes sense. And you pointed it out one time in the June 14th event. You mentioned, actually, I don't know where it was, but it was long ago, and you said something like, I remember I was saying something I noticed about physicists is they don't make this mistake of getting confused by semantics. And you contradicted me and you said, be careful, there are some. Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, just because you went through the system doesn't always mean that you have soaked up what everybody is supposed to be getting out of it.
Doesn't that mean those guys are not doing good science now?
I mean, it's a little bit harsh to say that, uh, especially if you see that the person is producing science, but at the same time, they have this kind of dichotomy between their everyday life and what they.
Well, then let me say it like this then. There's the generalist and the specialist. And if you see a physicist as a specialist, and they are, and they can do some good work, like you said, but what I'm saying is if you don't become a generalist, you're not going to do great. Like, you're not going to become the Einstein.
Right. So, for example, for me, I would have this is not a direct example of this, but it's basically the same kind of wonder you would see when you have a practicing scientist who basically takes off the metaphorical lab coat once they are out of their lab or office, and then once they are outside, maybe they're going for a sermon or a prayer where someone is actually who is far less educated and qualified than they are is preaching to them on something that is very anyway.
I want to add a qualification here. I think you went too far. You said they turn off their brains once they leave the physics department.
I'm talking generally about scientists. I didn't specify any kind of category,
right.
but I so
let me say you went too far though. They're doing it inside of the damn department too. So here's my story. Or let me just generalize it. You know, little stupid social drama, the stupid tips people have in a stupid office politics, dumb shit like that. It sometimes happens in the goddamn physics department. And that's not scientific thinking. That is retarded shit. So they didn't leave. They're still there.
This doesn't magically turn you into something other than human. When I would object to what you said before by referring to other people as regulars. Regulars.
Oh, I see. Yes, that makes sense. Because
I mean,
I want to fix my own statement then.
Yeah, I mean, we're all humans. We all have these issues. Some people are going to absorb these things and take them to heart and really implement them in everything that they do. Some people don't, and it's going to be a spectrum. You cannot say you're either here or here.
So to clarify my comment, it's happening in all the fields. Like, I remember there was a engineering major in one of our physics classes, and he was doing better than the physicists, most of them. And we physicists have a conception of engineers, which is that they're in general not doing physics and not doing science. But that engineer who liked this physics class we're in, he's doing it well.
Yeah.
So, you know, but if you put it on a graph, a distribution curve, what you're going to see is physicists in general are kind of high up on any kind of the scale, but they're actually low on a lot of other things that we also need, like emotional intelligence. I think physicists are pretty low on that stuff.
A physics degree is a very versatile thing. So
I agree with that.
Because of the fact that you end up with a lot of critical thinking, problem solving skills, it makes it possible for you to get into all sorts of things that are not necessarily related to physics to begin with.
One of my favorites is Ellie Goldratt, the physicist who became a business guru. And the way it happened was, you know, he's teaching physics, and he has professors in another department who are his friends, the business department, and those business professors kept nagging him with questions. And then he changed everything.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of people who actually went into the stock market starting with a physics degree, and they have what it takes in terms of the mathematical skill and way of thinking to approach some of these problems. So it's
Yeah, I would say the higher skill probably everywhere, including the stock market, is not just the math reasoning. It's more like the fact that you have to have a model and you need to improve your model, and you got to do science to close the gap between your model and reality.
Oh yeah,
And there's math involved in that.
no,
Yeah.
but definitely going through a physics program is something that gives you a set of skills that not that many people actually are able to appreciate until they go through it.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify for people: it can't give it to you, but it's there for you to go grab it.
Oh yeah, that's definitely one of the implications that I mentioned before. That you could have someone who is a full qualified physicist slash scientist, and yet you might see that there are certain things missing or off with the way that they approach things other than their field.
All right, I guess. Have you had enough? You want to stop now?
Oh yeah, sure.
All right, so I'll see you Monday, 2:00, and you'll see some emails again.
Okay, see you then.
So, but wait, Hebrew?
We can talk about that when we meet with Leia.
That's fine. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You're just gonna let me wait. Okay. All right, man. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.